Kia ora whānau and welcome back to an episode of Ngāhere Talks. It's been a while since we've been here on the podcast and I'm pretty stoked to be here in Poneke in Wellington at Karaka Cafe down at Wharewaka, down at the waterfront with a pretty incredible individual, someone who I'm looking forward to getting to know. We've kind of only known each other through probably LinkedIn and Instagram and stuff like that. But I'm here with Pera Barrett. Kia ora, Pera.
Kia ora.
Pera is, amongst many things, the founder and CEO of a charity called ShoeBox Christmas. He's also a digital product owner at BNZ, which we'll talk a bit more about how cool that is. And a really cool accolade against his name that he'll never really talk about is that he won the Local Hero Kiwibank New Zealander of the Year award a couple of years ago alongside Mike King. Is that right? Yeah, so welcome to the show, e hoa.
Kia ora, e hoa.
So choice to have you here. Why don't you just kick off by doing your own little mahi?
Yeah, cool. Kia ora. Well, tuatahi, tēnā koe e hoa. Thank you for having me along. And tēnā koe Karaka Cafe. It's beautiful. Kia ora for the coffees.
All right.
And ko waio, ko tarurua te maunga, ko taki te awa, ko kāpiti te mautere, ko rau te rangi te moana, ko Ngāti Raukoa ki te tonga, ko Te Atiawa ki whakarongotai, ko Ngāti Tōranga Tira hoki ngā iwi, ko John Barrett tōku pāpā, ko Susan Barrett tōku māma, ko Pera Barrett tōku ingoa. So I'm Pera, and I guess the pōtai that I wear are a few for this kōrero. We'll probably talk about the ShoeBox Christmas stuff.
Yep.
Like you said, the BNZ pōtai, the digital product owner, and I'll talk about whatever other pōtai,
whatever other stuff,
wherever the kōrero goes.
You also have an awesome podcast. I've listened to a few episodes called Paperback Gorillas. Is that right?
Yeah,
which is really cool, really some deep and thoughtful, meaningful kōrero going on in there, which is choice. But maybe just to warm up a little bit, can you tell us about one of your most embarrassing moments? On the fly, that one, eh?
I feel like it should be something real silly, but my most embarrassing moments are actually like getting up to Kōrero Māori and getting it wrong. And that's not really the purpose of that question. I know it's not a warm-up, because that's a tino hohonu subject. Like that's the most embarrassment that I feel, I think. Or when I can't get into a kōrero in Te Reo Māori that I want to be able to and that I think I should be able to get into. Again, that's not really embarrassment, that's colonisation, but it's...
Well, while we're at it, tell me a little bit about your Te Reo Maori journey. Where are you at with it now and how has it been for you?
Yeah, so first, and I have to... I'll carry on the kōrero and whakaaro from our rangatira Stacey Morrison, who, kind of always points out that you don't, Te Reo Māori is not the measure of your Māoritanga. So I shouldn't feel embarrassed at not being able to speak Te Reo Māori, but I do, and that's my own thing, also colonisation. But anyway, where I'm at, so I grew up in Otaki until I was 18 and moved down here for uni, and there's heaps of Te Reo Māori in Otaki. It's a beautiful,
I love that,
beautiful focal point of Te Reo Māori, and the revitalisation has been going on there for ages. So we're lucky enough to be pretty far down that path, which is choice. But I didn't speak much Te Reo Māori. We had little bits and pieces at home, but I didn't start learning until 3 or 4 years ago. 4 years ago, probably.
Wow.
Started at Te Wānanga o Raukoa with one of their courses, the Huia Te Reo course, and then I'm studying at the moment at Te Wānanga o Aotearoa, doing Te Ronakitanga, which is the first full immersion paper or course or level that I've done, and that's pretty intimidating a lot of the time, but I know it's an awesome learning environment as well. Like there's, people talk about imposter syndrome and being uncomfortable to learn and grow, right? And that's what that is. And so I feel like imposter syndrome is something that I experience a lot when it comes to Te Reo Māori, and that's a nice name and label for it. But I think all that really is me knowing that I'm not, or thinking that I'm not where I want to be yet. And I want to be at the point where I can kōrero Māori comfortably and not be, how am I going to respond to that? How am I going to say that? What is the word for that? And I know I want to be there, but I'm not there. And so that gap between here and there, that's the imposter syndrome bit, right? That's me going like, I feel uncomfortable because I don't think I'm where I should be.
Yeah,
But that's also just where the learning happens.
Yeah.
So the more
sometimes it can be a little bit of ego that gets in there for us too,
sure.
a bit of pride, not used to being not good at
Absolutely.
something.
Yep. Not used to being the one in the room who doesn't know how to do the thing, right?
Exactly. And you've got to get over that.
And you've also got to realise that is just learning. That's a prerequisite for learning, feeling uncomfortable.
So you're also a student and you're also a dad, 2 young kids. Mate, how do you fit it all in?
By getting up pretty early in the morning. So I get up between 4:30 and 5 most mornings and do my little morning routine, which is coffee, obviously. Start with a coffee.
Obviously.
Do my little meditation, and then I'll do some reading, and then I'll do my Māori, and then I'll do my ShoeBox Christmas mahi, and then the kids will be up, and so then it's whānau time pretty much from them.
Mean.
Yeah, so it's all stuff that I enjoy doing. So.
Yeah, I did notice that you had a bit of a kōrero around mental health being important to you. Yeah, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, so I mean, probably on just aligns to that pretty well. Like for me, my mental health is really only preserved by doing the things that make me happy. And so I've made a pretty proactive effort at making sure I'm doing the things that make me happy. And so that does mean things like, ShoeBox Christmas, reading the books that I want to read, writing the books that I want to write, making the music I want to make, raising the kids that I want to raise the way that I want to raise them in the way that I think will do them justice and serve them well. And so that means getting up a bit earlier, right? So I'll do that because I know it preserves my mental health. Yeah. And I'm kind of lucky in a way that I know that that's a necessity because I've experienced myself what it's like when that's not in place and how sad and how dark.
What made you like? Was there a turning point that made you realise that and you had to make some changes?
Well, yeah, I mean, I had a car accident when I was 21, and a wahine passed away in that car accident, and so I had I had to do some pretty intensive work at staying good and staying afloat, and so that I think then just coupled with seeing enough whānau and friends struggle with their own mental health to know that that's just something that you have to work at. And it's not like after my car accident I knew, all right, I now need to do this, that and that. That was a 10-year process probably of going, all right, what's the stuff that keeps me sane, and I'm going to prioritise that stuff. Yeah.
I feel like this kōrero could go in 100 different ways. Oh, that's amazing. And a profound, just something. I was in a car crash myself when I was about 19. Yep. But I don't, actually to this day, I don't know if there were fatalities. There were some people that were pretty bad. Yep. But we never got any updates. But it is something that it impacts you pretty heavily, Yeah. Anyway, I am real keen to hear about ShoeBox Christmas.
Yeah, cool.
It sounds real cool. What I've looked into sounds awesome. But why don't you just give us a little bit of kōrero about what ShoeBox Christmas is, and then like kind of how you got into it.
Yeah, cool. So the kaupapa is giving Christmas gifts to tamariki and rangatahi in need. So working with low decile schools and organisations like Women's Refuge and all of the variations of Women's Refuge, grandparents raising grandchildren, a bunch of different organisations who work directly with those whānau and those tamariki. So it's really as simple a concept as I connect with those organisations and those tamariki, and then I will connect, say you, if you were to sign up to help, I would connect you with one of those children who needs that Christmas gift, who wouldn't receive it otherwise. And a little bit of information about them, so their age, their gender, maybe something that they're into, like something about them, so that you can give them a thoughtful and meaningful koha that's going to actually create a positive experience for them. And then I tell you how to get that to them. That works differently in different places, but it's really as simple as that. And the point of it is really just to give that child a positive experience, right?
Yeah,
So
cool.
based on the understanding that for children in those situations, in low socioeconomic situations, the more positive experiences they receive, the more likely they are to make positive decisions later in life, and they need that offsetting, right? Like a lot of those tamariki and those whānau are surrounded by things that are going to influence them the other way, and are going to influence them to make choices that are going to affect them negatively down the line. And so the hope is, and the purpose is, those positive experiences they receive are going to actually offset that a little bit, and that's the whole point of it. And that's been really interesting to work through, because I mean I started in 2014 with Glenview Primary School out in Cannons Creek, and there were 80 kids there, and I kind of got it up and running and thought, yeah, cool, this makes sense, and I can help make this happen for those kids. And then there were more people who signed up wanting to help than there were kids at the school. So I was like, okay, well, choice. Well, like I can go out to another kura next year and we'll expand it. And so did that. And then that same thing happened every year. And so I kind of realized then, like, this is actually a big, there's a big gap in awareness of the gifters, the people who are doing the giving, around this need, like the fact a lot of them were realizing for the first time after I was going and telling that story and kind of promoting the kaupapa, there were a lot of like, oh, what, there's kids down there that don't receive Christmas presents, like that gap and understanding was big. And so I could work to address that and actually get something for those kids as well. So last year there were 64 schools, I think, in Te Whanganui Atara, schools and kura, kohanga, daycares, not daycares, but different organisations. And I think nearly 6,000 tamariki who received koha, received gifts. So it's grown a lot, and like I was saying earlier, like I've kind of helped get it up and running in a few different rohe. But I've reached the point where like I'm now the ceiling of how the project can grow and how it can reach more tamariki who will be benefited by it. So this year I'm changing the model a little bit to make, a lot, so that we're going to pilot it in Porirua, and this is probably the first time I'm going into detail on it. So this is one of those ones where you go, all right, the kaupapa is committed now, it's locked in.
Let's do it.
So we'll have a pilot group of rangatahi who will run their own smaller projects of, say, 2 or 3 schools. And through the course of running the project, we'll guide and coach them and mentor them in the skills they need to run the project, and then a bunch of other skills as well. The outcome being, or the impact being, that they finish up that year with transferable skills that they can then take out into the workforce or into wherever they want to go. Maybe they want to just start up a social enterprise themselves, whatever it might be. But they'll have the skills to do that. They'll have the empowerment, the confidence, the resilience, and the ability to actually take that and transfer it out into other kaupapa. So I'm pretty excited about that, because it means that the project can scale, firstly, to make that first outcome of those tamariki who need those koha being given those positive experiences. But it also turns the whole ShoeBox Christmas kaupapa into a waka that those rangatahi can get on board and have,
awesome.
and step off with a whole bunch of improved employment opportunities and intergenerational impact. Like that's the
new skills, new ways to look at things. Awesome.
And that, those kind of 5 core things, I think, of empowerment, and that one stems from actually from the podcast. Like all those successful Māori people who I've talked to, and when I say successful, like we were saying before, like I mean just that they are thriving and they're enjoying their life, right, living the life they want to live. It's not about they have a salary of X, or they've got this job or title that's
whatever
irrelevant.
Success means to them.
Exactly. That nearly all of them, when I've asked them, like, what is the one question that I try to ask each of those manuhiri is, in a parallel universe where you haven't got to this point where you're living the life that you love, like what's the difference? Like what didn't happen for you to not get there? And it's nearly always something around empowerment. Like it's about a mentor or some person or something that has said to them, you have the ability to do this thing.
Awesome.
And so that's kind of the starting point for this ShoeBox Christmas rangatahi-led thing. It's like actually empowering them to do that. Then there's a bunch of downstream things, like you then need to have the confidence to go, okay, cool, like I've got the empowerment, but I need to take that first step, right? I need to try it. So you need that confidence. Then you need the resilience to be able to go, oh man, when that first hurdle comes up, because there'll be something that will block me, like I'm going to be okay to solve that challenge. And so that's them. That's about getting them sorted to be able to do that mahi and for them to be good for themselves. And then there's how do you transfer that ability of your own into another context. And that's about the start of that intergenerational stuff. So you then go, okay, cool, like now other people can see me doing this mahi. I'm out here in the world, using my empowered, upskilled self to do this stuff. And then you get into the last step on that is being aware of the impact that you can make as the rangatahi, as anybody. And this is true for Pākeke, for whoever. There's a big difference between being out there in the world and doing mahi that inspires and empowers others, and knowing that you're capable of doing that. Like I think a lot of us who do mahi out, and especially for Māori who are out there doing things, it's important for us to realise that we are role models and to know how to leverage that position as a role model. And you know that, like that's what this kaupapa is. Like you're doing that with this platform. But like the last step in that for these rangatahi will be, how do you now go and use that ability and that position that you now have to really create some intergenerational impact to be able to raise your children in a way that they can do the same.
Awesome.
And so that's the purpose of it. That's I view it like a awa, and there's there's those rangatahi and there's me at this point here, and then there's my mokopuna and their mokopuna down there, right? And I want that those last two steps, that transferability and the ability to know that I'm a role model and to know how to leverage that role modelness to actually affect my mokopuna and their mokopuna down the road.
Why is that so important to you, Pera?
I think because, I know that we don't all get the opportunity and the privilege to thrive, right? It shouldn't be a privilege, but it feels like a privilege.
Totally.
A lot of us as Māori especially don't get to that point, and a lot of us don't realise that we have the ability to help others get to that point. And I think because it's our whānau and it's our brothers and our sisters and our aunties and our cousins who are impacted when we don't get there, right? I'm thinking about my mokopuna because I've seen people on my line of whakapapa not be good. And I don't want that for them. But it's hard for me to address that. I'll do whatever I can on that layer, but it's easier for me to have an impact downstream.
It's pretty amazing to hear, like, from on the outside looking in, a Christmas gift for kids, but to unpack what actually is behind it and the direction that it's moving in. I think we were saying something along the lines earlier where what it is now is not what you started, what you set out to do, but it's evolved over time, and it's in the stepping out and starting to do it that it starts to take shape.
And that's, like the core purpose has always stayed the same, right? Like, so it's always been about creating a positive experience for those tamariki, knowing that that's going to help them make positive decisions later. But the way we did that has changed massively from that first year with Glenview Primary School. That was a spreadsheet in Facebook Messenger, and drop the presents off at I think it was at my office at work, and and I'll drive them out to the school. And then over the years, like, once we got to about 3,000 gifts, it was like, I can't really do that anymore. So I had to change the model completely, but stay true to that original kaupapa of what am I trying to do here, and it was creating this positive experience.
And that's such a cool lesson, man. I think for any kind of entrepreneur or someone that wants to make an impact, like, you got to stay true to why, to the purpose behind what you're doing, because what you actually do is likely going to change.
Hard out.
And sometimes you won't even be able to see it when you first start out. And if you get too caught up in the what you do, sometimes it can kind of, I guess, hinder your growth, can hinder, I guess, the way that people interact with you. But if you stay open to, there's lots of different ways to achieve the overall purpose and outcome, Mate, there's so many different opportunities open up to you, I think, over time. Yeah.
And that's always been real interesting with the ShoeBox Christmas kaupapa, because there's kind of two users in that model. There's the tamariki, obviously, and the schools that they're a part of, and then there's the gifter, the volunteer donating that koha, or the whakaaro, or that gift. And so it's been really important to me to make sure that I'm staying true to those tamariki and their outcome, because sometimes that's actually meant a less mean experience for the gifter.
Yeah.
And that tension, I try to. It's important for the gifter and the experience of them to be really good, because they're the ones who are doing the mahi, and they're going to sign up again to do it next year and tell their friends about it and all of that. But the main purpose is making a positive experience for these tamariki. So sometimes that has meant that people have had to drop out and go, I can't do this because the way you're running it now doesn't work for me. And it's like, okay, well,
all good.
Okay, that's all good. That's up to you. That's like, this isn't actually designed for you. Like, it needs you, but it's designed for these tamariki.
Yeah. I feel like this is a really cool segue into human-centered design. Just that statement right there, which is one of the other things I wanted to unpack from you. A little bit conscious of time as well, and our next hui, but I really want to talk about this topic with you too. So human-centered design is something that you are passionate about as a person, right? It's also part of your role at BNZ. But what even is human-centered design, and how do you use it? So human-centered design is like, it's really as simple as understanding the people that you're making things for well enough to build the right thing for them, right? Like, and however you do, there's a bunch of different ways to do that, but it's about, empathizing with those people, customers, users, tamariki, whatever, and making sure that they're involved in the building process right into the point of, for the purpose of building the thing that they actually need and want. And that's not as easy as it sounds, because people will be able to tell you what their problem is, but they won't often be able to tell you what the solution to their problem is, right? Otherwise it wouldn't be a problem. They would have already solved it. So it's really hard for someone to articulate, this is the right way to solve the problem that I have. Like, you need to do more than just question them and ask them and interview them, right? You need to actually understand at that initial point them well enough to start. Then you need to be able to test your ideas with them and keep doing that all along the way until you know that it actually meets their needs. And I think a lot of the time we think that, or some of the people that I talk to anyway, we understand our users well enough at the start, and then kind of build the thing based on that initial understanding, and don't necessarily remember to just keep applying that human-centeredness along the life cycle of the thing. Like, I was talking to a bro this morning actually, and he was saying like they're having to pivot their whole model 4 years down the line, because actually it now, that the way that they thought they were meeting the need of their users doesn't actually work. And so another kōrero I have often with entrepreneurs, social and like for profit only, is that figuring out how to test your initial assumptions is the most important thing, right? Like you have that understanding of your user or your customer or your problem at the start, and then you need to be able to test a small slice, because if your next step from there is going, all right, I'm building the thing and we'll test it when we're finished at the end, like that's going to fail a lot of the time, and you will have invested your heart and soul into that thing. Like, based on what you understand of your user or your problem, what is the smallest thing that you can build to test that your understanding is actually even near the truth. I want to get an example of that, but I also just want to ask, what do you think? What would be like why is human-centered design even a thing? Like, what other types of design are being applied to creating solutions to challenges?
I think if you're not doing human-centered design, then you're just doing solution-centered design, right? Like you're doing a thing, you're building a thing focused on the solution that you think is right, which often just ends up in you building a thing for you. Like, you're making the thing that you think you would use to solve a problem, but you're probably not building it for yourself. And all of us are solving a problem for people in some shape or form, right? Like even our whānau, they're doing mahi for for the whenua or doing environmental work. Like most of the time we're probably doing that because we understand that it's going to affect us in some way. Like we're, that's or our mokopuna, like that's why we're doing it. So which, you know, we had that super interesting kōrero before about like what is human-centered design when you're building something for your mokopuna or their mokopuna, like when you're talking about intergenerational impact, how do you design something for somebody that isn't born yet? And yeah, I mean...
and then all your theories out the window,
like that's... I mean, and I don't know how you do
how
that.
How can you empathise with them? How can you test on them? You can't. But you can as well, because if you know our people and what is important to us, and as we carry on the tikanga and the values and the knowledge, that there are some things about our mokopuna that we do know. It
just gets super abstract.
Even
more abstract. I mean,
hey, we're good at that though,
human-centered design isn't that abstract as a ordinarily, but once you start going...
So how do you reckon human-centered design can be applied to someone that, say, wants to start up an impact project, or they've got an idea for a new clothing brand, or, you know, just a normal everyday kind of idea around something they want to work on, but knowing that human-centered design is something super important and will make them more successful in achieving their outcome. What's some real simple ways to engage with it?
I mean, I guess that what I was trying to kind of speak to before in a real vague way was like, you know, that initial understanding that you have of the buyers, right? So let's say you're making a clothing line, like really understanding firstly who it is that's gonna wear your stuff, and understanding them well, and that's, you know, actually going and talking to them. That's not going, it's this kind of person who wears it, and they you know, they value X, Y, and Z.
What about when people go, it's for everyone? Well,
then you're it's going to be hard.
Lazy.
Like, it's going to be pretty hard because unless you're making plain white tees, you know,
the boys up the bush are not going to wear that.
Exactly. You know, so you need to understand who it is, and it's always going to be. It needs to be specific enough to be usable. And once you know who that is, then actually going and understanding what their values are, right? So I mean, you know, making personas for those people. Going, all right, so. And, you know, there's heaps of stuff online about how to make personas, but
like a quick example. So, like, you want to make a new bush jacket. Who would be a persona? Describe one now.
Your persona would be the bro who is out hunting, you know, every weekend. But, you know, you need to understand the subtleties of, is he out hunting every weekend and then 9 to 5 he's working at the bank? Or is he out hunting in the weekend and 9 to 5 he's working beside the river planting trees for his marae? Because those are two different user personas, right? So you might go, I want this hunting jacket to actually be, it's going to be sweet for his 9 to 5 as well. Flip it around the other way and wear it inside out, and it's a suit jacket.
Yeah, perfect.
Or actually,
imagine that.
Or actually, the bro is working 9 to 5 outside. Planting trees, so he's going to wear this thing for 7 days a week. Next step really is going, all right, I need to define my problem statement again properly based on my understanding of them and my knowledge of them, and then I can start ideating and going, all right, like let's actually build, like let's decide, let's figure out how we're going to make a jacket or whatever. You might go, actually, the thing for this persona is a hat. You know, he doesn't want a jacket because when he's working out on the side of the river, like it's actually real hot. And he doesn't want to be wearing a jacket out there. But anyway, so like you've figured out what it is you think you should build through that ideation, and then you really need to be out there. You need to prototype it, make something, and then go and test it. And so what I was saying before about people looking at that stream of, you know, empathizing through to testing as being like that's like when you finish that, then you're building and you're good to go from there. But Kyle, like that goes on and on and on and on. Like you need to keep doing that. And getting, even if it's just getting feedback on that, on the end product, right?
There's nothing like feedback, eh?
Nah, like
honestly,
because if you build something and throw it out into the world, even if it worked this year for both of those personas, like next year, like climate change, like, you know, it's 3 degrees hotter. You know, like actually these jackets are way too hot. Why is no one buying my jackets? Because they're too hot. You know? But you won't know that unless you ask them.
Hard out.
So you need to keep testing and keep getting that feedback, and that's what you know, being human-centered needs to stay on top of your process the whole way through. It doesn't go, okay, we do some human-centered design and then bang into, you know, the end half of design thinking, and now we're just building it, and then we're into just, you know, agile, and we just know how to build the right thing. Like building the right thing needs to carry on the whole way through.
Even 4 years in, like your mate, eh?
Yeah, hard, exactly.
Yeah.
But that can be the hardest, like figuring out how to do the testing. I feel for a lot of the whānau that I speak to, that's often the hardest thing. Because it has to be a small enough slice that you're not investing, going out and getting a bank loan or whatever to put all your eggs in that one basket, and then that test goes, oh, no, that's not the one.
Yeah.
Then, I've spent all my money building that prototype.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever met with the current CEO of Vodafone, Jason Paris, or interacted with him, but he's a really hard case, and he talks quite often about how he offers himself as a personal customer services officer for anyone that he comes across. He gives his phone number out and everything and says to people, if you have a problem, like call me, text me, I will personally take care of it. And so many people are like, oh, that's ridiculous, that's stupid, he can't do that, that's not sustainable. I think it's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, he gets face-to-face, like word of mouth, direct from his customers, what's going wrong and what's going right. Like, that's the most valuable information to a CEO, eh? So I crack up at people that look at that and think, oh, he's stupid. I'm like, nah, he's a genius. I think
that's mean from his point of view, and from the company's point of view. The only thing that you've got to be careful of with that is that the minute you get a complaint that's come down from the CEO, like, the priority of that is like, even if it's only
but also if it calls you out, because if the complaint came from the CEO about you or your mahi or later bolt,
but you've got 10 complaints on the table, and 9 of them are actually super urgent, and super important for business reasons, and then you get one that comes from the CEO. And I mean, I don't know how he manages it, but I'm sure he'd be across this, but you just got to be mindful that one that you've sent through doesn't go to the top of the list just because you've sent it.
Hard out, eh? What was I going to ask? I thought it would be cool to just get a little bit of, like, I guess, an insight into your job at BNZ and what's it like. Can you tell us even like what you do, but maybe even about a product that you've worked on that's now on the market or something like that?
So the mahi that I do as a digital product owner is really the kind of the interface between the business and the development squad. Well, that's one of the pieces of it. So it's kind of up to me to work with the team to figure out the right thing to build next. And then to work with the team as they build it the right way.
And do you just work on online banking or?
Internet banking.
Internet
mobile
banking.
And on desktop.
So that's why the apps think.
That's why there's Te Reo Māori in the app, actually.
Because of you. Choice.
That's probably the thing. So that's was actually almost like my introduction into product ownership. So I was a digital people leader at the time, and then we did these things called innovation days, like a hackathon where we come up with a code that we think is worthwhile doing, and we try to prove out the concept technically and customer value wise. And so me and a few others did for that innovation day did Te Reo Māori translations in the app, and so some awesome developers figured out a way to technically do that, how we could make it work. A choice designer was like, we could make it look like this and that, and then we proved out the concept, and we then spent the next few months kind of actually putting it together. So working with Piripi Walker and some other his peer review checkers. Got him. Just a little mosquito. And so we put that into the app back in maybe 2018. Probably. And still my proudest achievement at BNZ, I think.
So it should be. That's awesome.
And so the majority of my job though is owning like a couple of little slices of internet banking, and so it's up to me to make sure that they're performing the way they should and meeting the outcomes that they should meet for our customers. And if they're not, then figuring out the right way to change that. So that might be just looking at looking at reports and the metrics and how people are using something like the term deposit flow on internet banking, figuring out how people are using it, and if they're not, if people are getting confused somewhere along the way, then tweaking it and making it less confusing, that kind of thing. So that's what the mahi is. Really, I really like it. It's a nice creative problem solving kind of role alongside really smart people and people who care about their mahi. So it's pretty cool.
Leadership too, bringing out the best in your team and
and it's
helping
one of those
them be productive.
without authority, it's influencing without authority type leadership, which was for me was actually probably a really the biggest step, or the biggest change, because for probably the 10 years before that I'd been
a dictator.
Mostly a dictator. A loving dictator. I was in leadership roles for the decade or so before that, and so moving into a no kind of direct leadership, but just influencing the team in an indirect way.
I definitely like that better, man. I've never really liked telling people what to do. I think because I don't like being told what to do.
True.
So I think it goes the reverse as well. I'm like, no, just do what you think is best.
Yep.
But no, people need direction, and influence and role models and stuff as well. Yeah, that's awesome. Man, I'm sorry that we're going to have to cut this a little bit short because I want to keep chatting, but we have other commitments and I want to make sure we keep that too. But thank you so much, Eho, for this kōrero, for your time, for coming out on your day off and hanging out with us. It's really choice, and wish you all the best for your future. If you're ever up in Tamaki and Manukau, make sure you come by or whatever, pop in and see what we're up to out there.
Check out the building.
Yeah, check out our whare and all of our crew, and it's awesome. It was awesome to meet you.
Kia ora, Eho.
Ka kite.
Ka kite.